my work, it falls under the umbrella of food sovereignty work. And it's a really wide umbrella. Food sovereignty is a movement that is all about giving tribal communities the right to self-determination when it comes to choosing our foodways and the cultivation of our foodways, and our right to protect and access our traditional foods and spaces and tend them the in our traditional ways. So food sovereignty, so on all of that, that's science. We have language reclamation, science, art, forestry, or I think I already said language. So there's a lot of different things that we can do into there. And what I do is recipe development and community education. And so I like to basically take our traditional foods and try to incorporate them into recipes that are accessible for everyday families. Can we do the next slide? Some of our traditional foods, I grew up in this area here. It's a really large area if you're familiar with the Marble Mountains. Um, in that particular area, there's the Salmon River. And some of our traditional foods that you can find all along in this area. This is a photo of the Salmon River facing toward the ocean, facing west. And some of our traditional foods that we all still eat today: acorns, salmon, eels, elk, deer, huckleberries, Indian potatoes, which are Brodiea. And like the cursor is going, I'm sorry, I'm like trying to hold it together, but the like cursor is bananas. I don't know what's happening. Okay, so um, but we still gather these foods today, and we mushrooms are very important. Indian lettuces like Claytonia perfoliata, and Indian is just a shorthand for Indian lettuce. So uh, Claytonia perfoliata, which a lot of people know it as a miner's lettuce, but manzanita berries and yeah, so we have this is barely even scratches the surface. We have an abundance of food in our river valley area, but an abundance of traditional foods. And one of the frustrating things about trying to do traditional food work is um, piecing together our traditional foodways in traditional preparations. And that when we are reading through archaeological or anthropological documents, oftentimes there's no real mention of traditional foodways because it was considered women's work. And it wasn't very exciting or sensational to have women out, to be documenting those things. So they were sort of lost. And our tribe was contacted relatively late in, in in the last wave of colonization. We didn't see a miner coming up the Klamath until like 1850, I want to say. So, and it was there were a lot of Norwegian soldiers that came into Humboldt Bay that went up the Klamath River to mine for gold and seek out their fortunes. So, among other, that was the beginning of our experience with colonization. So next slide. All right. So we have the first miners. This is just sort of a picture of, I never know what kind of a foundation to lay for everybody. If this is something that's old that you're already up to date on, awesome. I just wasn't sure. So I always like to provide a foundation for where we're at and just some context for the work that we're doing. But we were, like I said, contacted relatively late and by miners. One of them was a Norwegian soldier, which is one of my ancestors. And so they came up and they were blasting in the river valleys and really beginning the first of many waves of irreparable damage done to those ecosystems. So there's the miners, and then along came the homesteaders. and homesteaders need timber. So the timber industry came in and they did a lot of clear cutting of old growth and bulldozing up streams and creeks and tributaries where salmon would spawn. So that yeah, so there's like a lot of extraction happening at that time. Then we also had reservations being built and or reservations being established, and whole generations of kids going off to boarding schools and being put in boarding schools by Indian agents to help accommodate clearing the valleys out for the homesteaders. But especially in the Hoopa Valley and my people, even though we were dispersed and many of our relatives went to boarding schools, that we still persist and have always lived in our valley and in our traditional territory. Somebody has always lived there. So, but not everybody is so fortunate. So we have still maintained these connections to the land and to our foodways that over the years, but it is we are trying to now reclaim, because it's been whittled down to just maybe a few knowledge workers, a few elders, and a few speakers of our language, and and right now we're trying to put a really concentrated, robust effort into expanding and under the umbrella of food sovereignty work and land restoration and stewardship. So after boarding schools and then we have the rebellious few that are left, and especially the Yuroks, like working at the mouth of the Klamath and battling with commercial fishermen for fish, and with the agricultural allotments of the Klamath River water up at the top of the Klamath to many of those farmers that were allotted land after World War II up there. And of course, there's the dams, and the water is warming. And then we have one of our biggest, we have the first of several fish kills happen. And uh, yeah, where I think it was like overnight, thousands and thousands of fish because the water was just too warm. And there's parasites, gill rot, all of these things that can happen to the fish. So it's a very sensitive environment and they prefer cold water for spawning. So all of these things are, that, and the salmon are for us a very important cornerstone of our foodways and lifeways. And as it is for the whole rest of the ecosystem there. So we're battling with the fish kill. We've got Native people going to the Supreme Court to fight for our rights to fish and maintain the river. Um, and we eventually win. And so it it's like making these incremental, but as long as we keep fighting, we still are making some gains here. And then I'm born at the end of the fish wars and at the real beginning of the push for Klamath Dam removal. We also, as a teenager, one of the things that is really stands out is has been very influential in my mind. But in the 90s, there was a shortage of matsutake mushrooms in Japan, and this caused a shortage. So the shortage, there's only a few places in the world where matsutake mushrooms grow. And my traditional lands near where tan oak trees are, and the tan oak forests and even north of us into the dunes of Oregon, is matsutake country. So there, I think Finland might be the other place in the world that they grow. Still very small area, relatively speaking. And Japanese buyers came to offer cash for mushrooms, and they set up booths all over the place. And we had foragers coming from everywhere um, to just, cash in on this. And we had been tending these Hivish mushroom, mycelium networks forever, and they were very pivotal to uh, our cultural lifeways and foodways and to the wildlife that depend on them. So they had come up and were raking the forest. The buttons were being pulled, but I remember the lines of people. There were lines of people just, turning in huge buckets and boxes of mushrooms, all sorted out for stacks of cash. And it was really um, devastating because they weren't being harvested or gathered properly, and it ended up destroying a lot of our traditional gathering places. So that is something that is still actually an ongoing challenge with between foragers and our communities, in that we have a lot of people that come up for foraging, but they're not necessarily in community with us up there. So yeah, but we are also navigating other things right now, as well as forest fires. And like I said, we do have some winds. We have some dams come down on the Klamath River, which is incredible. I didn't think that I would see that in my lifetime, and I'm just really excited about that. And the fish are returning. So that's exciting. And we have been planning for this for so long that we have a deep seed bank of native plants that are meant to be on the river bar. So they're already setting all of these plans into motion. But we also have cannabis grows, which are problematic up there, especially, I mean, they've been growing up there for so long, even since I was little. So it's still kind of the same formula, but many times they will use the water from a creek bed and then backfill it with their used soil when they leave. Or I mean, there's so many there's agriculture runoff and all of these things that are causing problems with our aquaculture. So we still have the issues. We still have these issues that we're presently working on. So let's go to the next slide. So one of the things that I like to talk about is the difference between gathering and foraging. And because I have been knowing the difference between gathering and foraging since I was young. And people are seem surprised when I bring up that there really is a difference. As a gatherer, my gathering, it implies relationship. That it's a relationship that I've been building my whole life, and it is grounded in service and reciprocity, and in active reciprocity that starts always with me. And when I am gathering, I gather for community. Gatherers prioritize gathering for community events. We have many events year round, and aside from ceremony, we have births and grieving periods, and times where we want to nourish our families with traditional foods. So when we're gathering, we're thinking as an eye toward our own community service and our own community contributions, and how we can be generous in that way. And it is a year-round relationship. We're out there in every single season, and we are educating each other in kinship with other tribes and other cultural burners. We're learning all the time and teaching other people what we have learned, and what knowledge we reclaim and continue to use. So it's a very open sharing and community centric practice of gathering, as opposed to foraging, which is often extractive. That it People will come up into our areas and have no previous experience up there, no community connection, and usually the places they're gathering are places that, or the places that they're foraging are places that our subsistence gatherers rely on, and generally our subsistence gatherers are elders. And those commercial foraging dollars, they don't stay in our community. So people will come up and gather all of these mushrooms and then take them to the Bay Area and sell them. So that money doesn't even stay in our community. So there's no relationship or kinship with Native communities in these situations. And just shifting a foraging practice to be in community and to change that lens toward being a gatherer can be very impactful. So, Yeah, next slide. So, just to kind of like get into talking about the food part of it. So, these are my sons when they were little. They're large sons now. They're all grown up. In fact, one of them is going to be here this evening. So, I'm excited to have a weekend with him, but they're 21 and 19. So, this one, they were a lot littler, and you can see they're really stoked to be cracking and cleaning acorns. But when they were little, it was something that they really loved. They loved picking up acorns and cracking them and cleaning them. They got to use a little knife, and it was just good times. But as I got older, it was a little bit more like, hey, this feels like labor. But so here's the process that we use. You have to get two large sons to crack and clean all your acorns and gather them. And then I grind my acorns in a Vitamix and add a little water, and it makes this kind of milkshake that you see and in the next picture with the tannins leaching out to the top. And if the picture was big, you could see the tannin, but you would also see the striation of the fats and starches like leaching up and or settling in the different weights of the acorn. But an acorn is a perfect food. It has um, all the macros and a complete amino acid profile, but it's got a lot of tannins, so it has to be leached first in order to be edible. So after you've leached it, and I will take that water and pour it off every day and just run more water through it. And in fact, traditionally we would leach our acorns often near the creeks where salmon spawn, because the tannins will help keep the algae from growing in the streams and creeks. And that means more fish have a healthier environment to lay their eggs, and the water stays colder. So once you have bleached the tannins out, then I just squeeze out the acorn meal and some cheesecloth, and you can save the acorn milk. That acorn milk or acorn water is something that we often drink during ceremony times or during fasting. But you can use it for anything. I like to even put it in popsicles or in my coffee or anything. So after you've leached it, or after you've leached it and gotten all the water out, I just put the meal in a food dehydrator overnight until it is all very dry. And at that point, you can keep the meal as it is and make like acorn miso with a little bit of a chunkier, or put it once it's dry, you can put it back into the blender into some and grind it until it's a little more fine and bake with it, or make an acorn soup. Like in the next picture is a traditional way of making acorn soup, and it is using hot rocks. Oh, sorry. In that picture right there, there's hot. We just use hot rocks that have been heated in the fire, and they put them in the bowl, and they have special spoons to stir it around, and it heats and cooks the soup, the acorn soup. And then when you take the rocks out, it makes a little cracker. The acorn makes a little cracker on top of the rocks, and it's delicious. And everybody kind of fights over peeling the cracker, but or bake with it in a different way, like baking a loaf of bread. I have a I have an acorn sourdough starter, and yeah, so there's like just being trying to I've had all of this time since I was a kid and with my own children to mess around and experiment and figure out how to make these foods work in traditional ways that would appeal to a, a palate. Like, I mean, I'm a mom, I'm competing with Takis and fruit snacks and all that other stuff too, and I want them to have familiar textures and flavors so they can recognize it and push their palates a little bit each time. So it's kind of a way of meeting them halfway to make sure that they're still eating these foods. So the next slide. So these are some of the things that we make, and I've got a huckleberry gazpacho, which is very no-no food, kind of grandpa food, but I love it. We love it every summer. And some hand pies with huckleberries and acorn pie crust. As you like, these are all very familiar. The pancake was really one of the first things that my sons ate were their little acorn pancakes. Very simple way to get to introduce yourself to acorn and using acorn, easy to be successful. Then I like to roll wildflowers into my pasta. Uh, just some of them are a little like peppery, like nasturtiums, add a little pepperiness to the pasta, or nettle is really really good too. And I always do my smoked salmon brined in blackberries. Was just how I like it. I think that they taste extra good because I don't know, there's just something umami about blackberries, and blackberry smoked salmon is, I think, is like the best combination. Maybe because they are, I also, I really feel like those two things go together for me. And, being on the river as a kid and having smoked salmon on sticks all around and blackberries everywhere and just running like around feral eating blackberries and fish. So there's something about that that's very nostalgic to me, and I that's my favorite way of doing it. It's very easy, and you can do it with the late summer blackberries that are all kind of like shriveled. So and then or this is nettle tortillas is the last picture, which just a way to again incorporate gathering and using uh, a traditional medicine in your everyday food. So, oh, and I do have a video. I don't know if it'll play though. The next one is a video, which I don't know. Good luck. I think you have to unmute yourself. Oh, there's no music, but it's
Mhm.
okay. The music was a little annoying anyway. I'll be honest. It made me cringe a little bit, but I don't know if I should narrate it, but I'm making crackers. Oh, did anybody have questions? I don't even know. Oh, no, look. So yeah, this video is making acorn hummus with acorn crackers. And we're using the acorn meal, so it's not all the way flour. There's a little chunky, or there's bite, there's tooth. It's al dente. Okay, let me see. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad everybody else talked about the cursor too. It's making me nuts. All right.
I'm sorry that you couldn't hear the music, but it played, which
We're winging it. It played. Yeah. So we just go to the last slide and I'll answer some. I see some questions. There's a really good one here later about later contact from colonizers that allowed for a greater preservation of culture among the Karuk tribe. No, unfortunately, colonization at that point it was a pretty well-oiled machine and came with the backing of National Guard. And the state of California had declared a that you could um, that you could kill native people and bring evidence of that to the post office and get paid. So that it unfortunately was already coming pretty fast and furious at that time. They had the playbook down. So it was fast. It was separate people from their land, separate them from their foodways, separate them from their cultural practices, separate them from their children, feed them, put them all in one place, feed them agriculture products grown on their land. And so, that it was at that time I'd already been pretty dialed in. So we do have some traditions, but again, it happened very quickly. So and we were not a writing, we didn't write our language. Our traditions are oral traditions and meant to be practiced. So unfortunately, I don't know that we had any more of our cultural lifeways preserved than other people, but more so than some people. So kind of in the middle. Let's see. Gathering and preparing nettles and cooking. How do you avoid getting stung? Well, I use dish gloves and I also just know I'm going to get stung. I kind of like it. It's good for you. But for the most part, I use dish gloves and I really rarely get stung by one. Occasionally, they'll get underneath a sleeve or something, but I shove them into a plastic bag and tie it. And then when I get home, I immediately blanch them in boiling water for about 2 minutes, pull them out, put them in an ice bath, and at that point, they're good to go. If you want to handle them even more, you can just basically put them on a dehydrator, rinse them and put them on a dehydrator, but their little spines are actually very delicate. So they don't pack that big of a punch usually. They it's one and done anyway, but yeah, they're very delicate. So really water can kind of destroy them a bit, and especially boiling water, it only takes about a second because they're such fine little prickles. So you really don't have to do much to quickly get rid of the nettle sting. But I wear dish gloves and works for me. So let's see. Um, where are we? Okay. How long do I soak acorn flour to remove the tannins? It depends on the acorn. So all acorns are edible, and they all are edible. They just need to be leached, and some of them take longer than others. So from me and my experience, well, traditionally we're a tan oak tribe. We prefer to eat tan oak acorns, and I have found them to be pretty tannin rich, which I think is why one of the reasons that you know we use tan oak is to tan animal skin. So tan oaks are our favorite. They take a while to leach, probably a week for me, a week and a half, depending. I have found blue oaks to be the least amount of leaching necessary, and then everybody else is kind of, it depends. It's the same. Red oaks will take forever, but yeah. But black oak and live oak and valley oaks, they all seem to take around the same time. And that depends on how often you want to be changing the water. So if you want to get it done really fast, then you can keep changing the water and you can keep doing it until you get to the point that it is no longer bitter, and it'll start to smell very nutty, almost like almond milk, and it'll start to really it'll still be earthy, it'll still be earthy, but you'll start to notice different things about it. Like it can be floral even, or almondy, or yeah. So there, it just depends. And all of the acorns leach and cook up a little differently, the same but a little differently. Like I love to use valley oaks for baking. For some reason, I feel like they make the lightest, fluffiest flour. It's a gluten-free flour, so I mix it with a flour that contains gluten, but I need less of the AP flour when I use valley oak acorns. That makes sense. So let's see. White oak, yeah. Multiple soakings, yeah, you're gonna have to soak them several times and get the tannins out. Let's see. Somebody wants to know how long to soak coast live oak. I would say probably the same. It depends on how quickly you want to do it and how often you want to do it. And you'll be able to tell in the first couple of days. And you saw that my tannin water was very yellow, like very dark yellow. And that was only after a few minutes of leaching. So it was a long time to leach through all of the tannins in that. So it depends. And it also depends on how much you're doing at a time. So um, let's see. Yeah, it depends on how much you're doing also and how quickly you can do it. But I mean, I would mess around with it. That's part of I think the journey of people who are interested in connecting with these foods and people who already feel drawn to learn about and think about these things and develop this relationship that like just take your time and know that it's a journey of learning. So I recommend experimenting and seeing what works for you. So let's see. Oh, Q&A box. Oh shoot. Sorry. Let's see. I need an admin here. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
I'm
let's see.
sorry. I'm supposed to be your admin, and
Oh my God, Susan.
and today is just
Okay.
not my day to make Zoom work.
Okay, so acorns. Jordan asks, when you say acorns, what species are these primarily? All acorns are edible, like I said, but I generally am Northern California, all California acorns, I would say. It depends. I eat them all, but I am primarily gathering tan oaks and black oaks and Oregon white oak. So. Climates can be cold in the winter. What do you recall about your parents prepping food to last through the seasons? Yes, it can get cold, definitely. And so my parents would prep food in the summertime and in the fall, actually our whole hillside would do it. So we lived in a small community of other families that were living in the same way, that they also did not have electricity or running water and but we were all trading. Some people had goats and they would have milk, and so we would do a lot of trading for that. And my mom did a lot of canning of all of. She had a huge garden, and she and I would do canning. I'm the eldest daughter, so an Italian. I'm the eldest Italian daughter and eldest Karuk daughter, first granddaughter, all of that. So I had a lot of heckin' chores. But I did do a lot of canning with my mom and yeah. So that's kind of how we would prep for the winter. My dad would hunt and we would have smoked salmon and smoked eels, fish, acorns, things like that. And then we would still get the commod distribution in town. So yeah, that's how we would get through the season. But sometimes it was hard. And my dad tells a story about how we had we were eating like cornmeal and peanut butter, like commodity peanut butter, which I don't know if you've ever had that before, but it's a nightmare. So yeah, I think there were some hard winters there, but they made it work for sure. Um, and another question was, do you store the acorns or prepare them right away and convert it to acorn flour? It's a good question. That's normally we give the acorns time to cure inside the shell so that they're easier to crack and easier to clean because there's a little membrane inside between the shell and the acorn. It's called a testa. And so it just kind of shrinks and gets easier to deal with as it cures, but it depends. Sometimes I'm full of energy in the fall and I like to crack and clean my acorns right away, get them ground up and dried, ready to go. So I'm able to um, do recipe testing whenever I want to. And when I was actively writing this book, which is I mean, really, I've been doing it. This book is a compilation of very personal family recipes, I guess. So whenever and I was doing a lot more gathering. I was doing like 10 times more gathering than I normally did in order to do the recipe testing for the book. So thankfully, my gathering schedule has sort of mellowed out. And now that I'm not actively writing, but I am doing a lot of work at the Cal Poly Humboldt Food Sovereignty Lab. There is a new food sovereignty lab that just opened this school year. So I'm going to be up there for a month doing some recipe testing and seaweed testing and things like that. So it's pretty exciting. So yeah, it depends. I went on a tangent, but it depends on whether or not you want to prepare them right away or if you have a place to store and cure them. So, um, let's see. Can all California species of oak? Yes, all of the acorns are edible. Do the spines have formic acid in them? I am not sure. I don't know. But you know what? I'm gonna write it down. Would be good to know. Have you combined and made acorn flour pizza? It's a question from Robert, which I feel like, are you trolling me right now, Robert? Because I have been working on this for so long, and I have a friend. I made a new friend that is doing pizza in Hopi country, and we are going to combine our efforts like a pizza Voltron and figure it out finally. So, and I've got my acorn sourdough starter, so we'll see. Hopefully, we'll dial that in. But yes, I think about it a lot, and it's actually a little tougher. I'm not a great baker. That's probably on me, but yeah. So but to get it right, to get it in that, to get the right consistency, and we're thinking of it as like Napolitano pizza, right? So from like Napoli. So it's been hard to get the right like chewiness perfect. But I'm not great at making doughs, but okay, let's see. Layers of cheesecloth. Was that layers of cheesecloth or what kind of cloth on top of the jar with the acorn meal so that you can pour off the, yeah, it was cheesecloth. Hmm, Yep. And that's just so I can keep some of the starches inside when I pour it through there. It saves some of the starches. Some of it's still going to go out, and that's okay. You'll have a little bit of loss when you pour, but or you can just keep going and don't pour all the way to the end, but or use the cheesecloth to stop it and keep it in there. Let's see. As long as they aren't moldy or don't have boring insects in them, but may have been on the ground a while, they can still be used. Yes. Yeah. If they haven't sprouted and they're not moldy and they're intact, absolutely. Yeah. And there are some communities that do like acorns to like to gather acorns in the spring right after they've sprouted because supposedly they're sweeter from utilizing the starches as sugars to grow the little sprout, or there's something about converting the starches to sugars in the springtime. So there are some tribes that do like that. Um, let's see, I'll go back. I think that goes all of the questions in the Q&A, but how do you know when you've leached enough of the tannins out of the acorns? You'll know because you won't feel that bitter taste in your mouth. It'll taste earthy and it'll taste kind of sweet, but you won't have the same puckering tannin flavor, if that makes sense. Like wine has tannins and it dries you out. You'll notice that in when you're leaching, and it'll get to a point where it's not doing that anymore. And then it's ready.
So it's okay to eat a little bit of it raw before you cook it?
Once you've leached it of the tannins, yes, you can munch it if you want. Mhm.
But that's how you could possibly test it for how much tannin remains.
Yes, you have to be tasting. Just don't eat like a spoonful of it. unless it's all leached out, and then do whatever you want. I'm not the boss of you. You can eat a spoonful if you want. But I mean, I don't cook it before I dehydrate it. I just leach it all the way of the tannins, and then I dehydrate it and then turn it into flour or miso or whatever. And I would like it for. Um, what fat do I use for fry bread? I use sunflower oil. I don't know if that's exciting, but that's what I prefer. I love the sunflower. I think it's an incredible plant. I think one of the questions was about not having an oak tree, but sunflower is an incredible plant to use from like seed to stem or seed to petal, like every bit of it you can eat.
You can eat
Um,
more than the seed on the sunflower,
you can eat every part of the sunflower.
raw,
But
or does it need to be cooked?
I think I mean, I know you can use the greens, the leaves in salads. You don't have to cook them. I don't think there's any toxicity. You can, but I think the stems and stuff can be cooked up. Uh, even just done a quick blanching. But yeah, every part of it.
Wow. The flower? The petals?
Hmm. Yeah, I have a recipe in my book where we like to put the petals around spring rolls, so you can see the sunflower petals in the spring rolls.
Wow.
Mhm. Sunflowers, there's a lot of different plants, but I would say look around and see what do you have around you. For example, I have a lot of bay laurel trees around me, and the bay laurel trees are traditional medicine for us. It was our first medicine given to us by Pepper Nut Woman, and so that's a place you can start. They're pretty abundant in the Bay Area. That's a good place to start because you can roast the seeds of the bay or the bay nuts and yeah, and make like cocoa with it. I make a mole. It has a lot of chocolatey coffee like properties. It doesn't have any caffeine. And yeah, so things like that. I would say look at bay nuts or sunflowers. There's blooming things, maybe some wood sorrel, something for your salad to just sort of brighten it up. I do like to have our foods be bright and colorful and be representative of us celebrating them. And one of the things about not having your foodways documented is, having to remind ourselves that I like our foodways were vibrant and diverse and interesting and varied from house to house, and everybody had a different way of doing things just like we do now. We have a different way of cooking things, and I know that they were cooking for kids too, and just trying to celebrate our foods by making them as colorful as possible or celebrating their color and finding ways to work with their vibrancy like that as a way of sort of honoring that relationship and how much I revere these foods. So let's see. No, I do not squeeze my own sunflower oil, but I do like to make my own acorn oil, which is incredible. Acorn oil is great, but I've found that red oaks are the best for making acorn oil, and red oaks aren't really native to California, but there's a lot of municipal red oak plants or red oak trees that were planted. So there are people that work with going around and gathering these municipal acorns as long as they haven't been sprayed. So, but yeah. Let's see. Buckeyes. I've heard that buckeyes, which have some serious toxins, are sometimes eaten. Yeah, buckeyes are still eaten. We didn't eat buckeyes, but I do know, I believe that the Pomo people um, that the Pomo people did. And I also down, oh gosh, I was talking to somebody who was Amamutsan in the Santa Cruz area, and they were talking about buckeyes too. And yes, they do have some serious toxins, but they are eaten still. Um, I think that might be it. Oh, wait, let me see. Trying to answer all the questions. Um, More information on foraging versus gathering and how to harvest in community with native gatherers, particularly within the Bay Area. Know a couple of native orgs and some basic tips. If it's invasive, it's probably fine. If it's a tuber, it may be a staple. For a lot of historical tribes, so probably leave it, but do you have additional suggestions and anywhere I could go for more information? So, yes, yes, and no. That is something that is still being worked out, and it's really difficult to put you in contact with. I don't know exactly where you are, but okay. So, if you are interested in gathering and being a gatherer, I would recommend being intentional about it. So, like I said, look around and finding something around you that you want to learn about and approach it from that angle of being very slow and intentional, and just choosing one thing to start with and to develop a relationship and to do the research to find out how it was used traditionally, if it's still being gathered, if there are elders that are still subsistence gatherers that may want that maybe could use something that you've gathered, and then in that exchange there's an exchange of information, and the reciprocity starts with your act of here, I have this, would you like it? And then in that reciprocity they talk to you about it and how to use it and how to gather it properly. So it's hard. It's hard because the answer is to be very slow and intentional and choose one thing at a time. But before you know it, it's going to start snowballing. So, yeah, I would say starting slow and finding out who the people are that are doing traditional food work in your area and how you can support that work. So the reciprocity piece has to be started, right? So your act of service is what kicks off the cycle of you receiving what you're after or what you're looking for. So, and depending on, and then feel free to email me. I think, oh yeah, my email is on this slide, but feel free to email me if you want to have, tell me more specifically about where you're located and who I might be able to put you in touch with, and whatever sort of basic information I can do to sort of like launch you. That makes sense.
Got a
Yeah.
question about osselberry, whether or not that's in your area and whether or not you cook with it.
Oh, so berry. What is, oh, I don't know. I don't know if we call it osoberry. We might call it something else. What is Osos? Bears? Bearberry? We do have a bearberry.
I think the bearberries in Manzanita. Yeah, this is a
Mhm.
Oemerlia.
Hmm. And yeah, it's hard when we have different name, like regionally different names for it, but I don't know about an Oso berry.
And Yvonne McHugh asks whether or not insects were part of the diet, and if so, how are they prepared?
So we do not have, like I said, we don't have a lot of information about things like that in specifics. But yeah, I mean, we would even eat the little bug inside the acorn. It's just protein. But, but I don't have um, any particular recipes or preparations for it that are traditional that I know of yet. But I agree. I think, well, I mean, insects are, I mean, they're, it's a sustainable protein source. And I know there's a lot of problems with grasshoppers in like the valley. So I do think that would be interesting to look into and talk about.
Yeah, and certainly all of us who have eaten figs have eaten the fig wasp. So we're we're already
Mhm,
eating insects even if we don't know it.
mhm. California poppy seeds. I don't know. We did not eat poppy seeds, but I know seeds are a very important staple. Are poppies are poppies related to like red maids? Because red maid seeds are a very traditional food way.
My
And I don't know
understanding,
about Indian plums. Now that does sound familiar, but I'm not sure. I'm writing it down though.
yeah, my understanding is that the California poppy seed is edible.
Is it
It will set off a drug test, just so you
really
yeah.
spicy?
Yeah, they're very tasty. They already taste roasted even when they're raw. Just wait till they're brown
Hmm.
and don't eat them green.
All
Oh, and
right.
Susan Mullaney asks how you prepare the red made seeds.
So the red meat seeds, as far as I have ever seen them prepared, was in a cast iron pan, toasted very for 1 second, and then put into a energy bite, like an as what is it called?
A snack.
It's like a pemmican style where it's cured fish that has been shredded and pounded and turned into almost like a pemmican style ball with the toasted red made seeds. But
Wow.
I believe like in some so that's one way that I know of eating it. And I know that the Amamutsan people have a really close connection with red maids, and they would grow them in a circle on the hillside, and they whenever a new baby was born they would burn a circle into the hillside and plant red maids in the circle every time a baby was born for the additional seeds. So they had all of these when the Spanish came, they had all of these circles that were burned into the hillside to show how many families were living there.
Wow.
Mhm.
How big were those circles?
So I never saw the circles up close, so I'm not sure.
Wow.
Red maids are
Is
in the minors limits. Okay.
nice. Is yerba does yerba buena grow in your area?
Hmm. Yeah, it's similar to our Indian tea. Everybody has an Indian tea, and it's something that's grown around. We had a lot of raspberry leaf and yerba buena, and I think off the top of my head, yeah, I think those are the main things that we would have for tea. We had lots of different things that like lots of different roots and lots of different plants that could be made into teas, but yeah, it's pretty common one throughout California.
Was that all of the raspberry family leaf members? So salmonberry,
Hmm.
thimbleberry, okay, blackberry as well.
Yeah. Did we do it? Did we cast everybody out?
Oh no, we still have a lot of people.
I don't think I have any more questions, but thank you so much for having me and for all of these really good questions. I wish I had better answers, but I really do appreciate your questions and something for me to think about. I really appreciate it.
And this is a wonderful excuse for us to grow more native plants.
Hmm. Yeah, I know. I was thinking of all of the people. That's why I was so excited to do this. I was thinking about of all of the people who would have this innate calling of an understanding of why native plants are important, not just for one singular thing, but for all of the interconnected pieces of life ways that can be grown along with these plants and these connections. And yeah, there's like it's just so much, and I was so excited to be here. I wish I was less of a nervous speaker, but I was very excited to be here, and especially with your group. And yeah, I'm grateful.
You've been wonderful. This is so much fun because really every one of us is just looking for another excuse to grow another plant. And
I
and
know.
being able to feed our ecosystem and ourselves is just so valuable, and that you're sharing this information with us is wonderful. Um, and Hillary's talking about elk clover, California spikenard,
Mm,
California
yeah.
ginseng.
Hmm. Yeah, we have a California ginseng. We use it for medicine.
Wow.
Mhm. And
I thought there was some in Michigan in the East Coast, but I didn't know there was sort of the sugar maple understory with the beach, but I didn't know we had it.
I know at least in the far northern part of California. So where I'm from is very much like far northern, almost to the Oregon border. So that's like the Marble Mountains, the Klamath Mountain, Salmon River, Klamath. There's it's just down south of the Rogue River. So yeah, it's way up there.
There's a ginseng. That's fabulous. Wow. I I knew we had a ginger, but not a ginseng.
Mm.
That's neat.
You know, there's a book called The First Full Moon in April, and it has a lot of traditional foods that are, or I'm sorry, traditional medicines like that it's really interesting, like a reminder of these things that we used to gather and use all the time. And that's one of them. Is, something like that, the ginseng. And we also, Karuk people were also tobacco growers, which is really, I know it sounds common, but it's actually very unique. We were the only tobacco growers in California. So we would have little gardens in front of in front of the men's houses that were gardens with tobacco plants that was specifically Karuk tobacco. That and um, yeah, so it's just like that book itself is really great. And actually a lot of work about work talking about tobacco among the Cutter people. But the first full moon in April by oh, it's Bertha Peters, I think. And yeah, so her book is great if you really are interested in preparations of traditional medicines like that. So
Oh,
you
that's
might have to order the book to be printed through Routledge for just like a one-off printing. I'm not sure how that works, but yeah, it's a great book if that is something that you're interested in. The Miwok have a lot of really good medicine knowledge about roots and things too.
and Alicia is asking that if she buys your book, may she mail it to you to get it signed?
Mhm.
Oh my,
Yes. Or if you're in the Bay Area, I'm just in Mill Valley. I can swing by.
wow. Thank you so much.
Mhm. And yes, we're going into the full moon, the spring equinox. It's exciting. It's a good time. Mhm. It's the perfect time for renewal and like renewing our commitments and renewing our, I guess, as a community, renewing our goals as a community. Yeah. I love that about spring too. We have our basket weavers gathering, and it's when we go and get hazel and willow shoots and get our basketry materials and get together as, community members. So yeah, I love that about the spring.
It's wonderful. And Rose Johnson shared after the first full moon in April by
Yes,
Josephine
yes.
Peters. Perfect. Thank you.
Josephine Peters. Mhm.
And Cindy, you say that you are new to the area. Well, welcome. And we're looking forward to seeing you at one of the in-person events. And this way you can meet more of us or show up at any of the Habitat events. There's not just CNPS, Yerba Buena events, but all of the different chapters have events. We don't have a nursery, at least not a public one, but Santa Clara Valley and the East Bay have nurseries to visit and all kinds of great botanic gardens. And there's some really fun places to go meet people. And the East Bay Native Bringing Nature Home. Kathy Kramer's East Bay Native Garden Tour is a wonderful place to meet people. So welcome to the area.
Mhm.
Yeah, this is wonderful. Sara, thank you so much. This has been fantastic. And I just appreciate your knowledge and your willingness to share it with us.
Thanks for having me.
We'll stay in touch.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I'll keep an eye out. Maybe I'll end up at one of your events. I would love to do that. I just have been so swamped busy, but we'll see. Hopefully this year will be a little bit more calm. So I know that my both of my large sons moved out, so I have an empty nest. Like, what do I do? I've been going to the library, hanging out with those librarians.
Come hang out with us.
Mhm,
And the Marin chapter is pretty active, so you can hang out with them, hang out with us. A lot of fun people to hang out with.
mhm. Yeah. All right.
Well, thank you all for being here. Sara, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with us. It's been amazing.
Yeah, thank you. And we'll be in touch. And again, if anybody has questions that I didn't answer, or if you want to just continue a conversation, feel free to email me or send me a message on Insta. I'm a slow emailer, but I always get back. I always do. I'm slow at getting back to people sometimes, so bear with me, especially the next several weeks are going to be swamped, but it matters to me, and it is important that that you're going forward by centering native life ways and ways of being, and I appreciate it, so I don't want to leave you hanging, so just bear with me.
Thank you for all that you're doing. I appreciate it. And I think we all appreciate it. Thank you, Susan.
Oh,
Bringing back the natives tour. If anyone has a link to the Kathy Kramer tour, that would be great. But it's a great place to meet people and to
cool.
meet other people who are interested um, in native foodways and native plants and how we can all um, have more fun interacting with our ecosystem and with each other.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, it is like developing a very personal relationship, but it is also about community and being together. You know, it's not meant to be a solo endeavor necessarily. Like, you build and cultivate your relationship personally, but when we're gathering, we're not just gathering for ourselves, or if we are, we're doing it in a really intentional and thoughtful way. But most of the time, once you start getting into community and gathering, it'll take on a whole different rhythm that you'll be accessing.
That's really neat. Yeah, so much of what I gather is are just invasive plants as I try to teach people here, eat this nasturtium, take all you want.
Right, I do that too. I mean, we do that a lot as well. And things that have become medicine plants. I mean, I have a ton of wild fennel pollen, so I put it in everything. But I love fennel, and I don't know if it's just because everything I ate as a child had fennel in it, but It's my favorite. So I still gather the heck out of it.
It is delicious, and
Hmm.
I have been known to just break off the flowers and take them home and use them in
Put
things.
in a sack. Same.
Yep. They're
Hmm.
tasty.
Yeah. I know. I love, there's something about the wild fennel pollen. I just love it.
Yeah.
But there's so many things like that. We have I don't know what you call it, but pineapple weed. It's
Oh
like
yeah.
chamomile
Yeah.
family, but it smells like pineapple weed. We eat, we
Yeah.
eat
We've got
that. We have a lot of that too.
yeah, we've got that, and we've got a delicious there's an invasive onion called
Mm,
three-cornered onion.
three-cornered leek.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's so tasty.
I have an onion dip recipe in my book that uses a tri-corner leek because they're everywhere. And I
Yes.
love onion dip.
I
See, I'm competing with myself too. I'm competing with my own trash palette. I can't help it. I still want onion dip, but I also have all these little invasive leeks everywhere.
Yeah, it's
Especially
funny.
and you grow in like if you have little creeks and stuff, they're everywhere.
They're everywhere. Yeah, we've got some of the people that I have the privilege to garden with collect them and then make dumplings out of them and soup and
Mm.
Chinese pancakes. And they're just
Yeah,
there's so
they're
many.
so good. I know, but they're so delicious. They
Yeah,
really are.
they're
And I
just
like to dehydrate and make them into salt, like a
oh
leek
wow.
salt. Mm,
We haven't done that. Oh,
yeah,
that sounds great.
they're really good. I love them. In fact, I have some right now blooming.
Yeah,
And the
yeah,
flowers, you can just throw them in a salad. The
yeah.
best.
They're a trail snack for me. It's like,
Hmm.
oh, it's blooming, it's invasive. I should just make sure that flower doesn't go anywhere except my mouth.
And if
Mm.
you pull it out and you see the little onion bulb at the bottom, it's a little onion. It's a
Yeah.
bulb. It has this like little onion bulb. They're wonderful. Like every bit of it is wonderful, but it's invasive. So
Yeah.
I pick it with wild abandon. I don't.
I mean, why not?
I know, yeah. So, yep, yeah. I think how late do you usually
This
how
is
late
probably
do you plant society?
we're
How
party
how
animals
late
can go all night. No, no, we're done.
how
It's
late is your secret meetings?
it's 9 is usually as late as we go, and it's just about 9 o'clock.
Hmm. I haven't heard my large son's thunder paws coming down the stairs yet, so he's not home yet, but he'll be home soon.
And
Can't
hungry.
wait. Yes, always. Never not hungry. Mhm. Hillary says, I think the coyotes like the smell of the tri-cornered onion. I think so too, because it's like there must be something like catnippy to it because we get them as well because they grow all up our road. And at this time of year, they're just all down there like sniffing in it. You could hear them yipping and they're just always there, like always on the road, trotting through it.
Oh, that's fun.
I think there is something about it. I don't know. Because they do seem to like it. They like onion dip too.
Don't we all?
Right. Who doesn't love an onion dip?
I mean, everyone loves onion dip.
Hmm. Yeah.
All right. Well, us plant people should have taken so much of your time. Again, thank you so much, Sarah. This has been a ton of fun.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. All right, I'm gonna let everybody go then. Thank you and stay in touch.
Good night.
Good night.
Goodbye, everybody.